everybody, and we're back, day 38, and this is inspired by another culture, and this was yesterday's watercolour, which came out very brown and earthy, and I quite enjoyed that. I think I did it upside down the other way, but that didn't matter. I went and scanned it and printed out, and what happened was my printer ink was running out of yellow, so you can see how different it is. But I don't mind this, and I like to play with these bits of paper after I've scanned them. So I thought I might do it. This reminded me of Australian Indigenous culture, and that's what I thought I'd go with, and I wasn't expecting it to look even more like the Outback when I printed it out. So I'm just going to have a little mess around with this. I printed out a Uluru, which is the beautiful big rock in the middle of Australia, and I think I am just working out which way up to have it. Alright, I'm not going to use all of this. I want to keep a bit for later, for collaging, and use this bit. Alright. Roll the sleeves up, get into it. So Indigenous culture of Australia, our First Peoples, of course, have many tribes and many languages, and quite fascinating culture. Pretty unorganised here today. I've just had business phone calls and all sorts of things happening today, so it's been one of those. It's a late start, and that's okay. And I'm just going to say a few things, I guess, about what I know about Australian Indigenous culture, which is not everything, of course, being English. Born in England, came out when I was 2, but been here for many years. And I want my Posca pens. Where are they? Oh, okay, they're over the other side. Back in a second. Posca pens at the ready. So that's good. I think we'll go with that. I'm loving these Posca pens for you know, for mixed media. I just picked up a couple of the 1M size. You just have to activate them. Sometimes they take a little while to get activated before they'll work. Okay, so that's 2. I got a yellow. Quite enjoying them. And what else in this? Oh, and a red in this. I picked these up the other day because I've been using the thicker ones, and I'm just loving them. I love the way that they go onto the page over paint. Probably should have done all this before I started, but you know what? This 100-day one is my rambly, long-winded TMI, talk too much one, and that's what you get, basically. This isn't. This is a gold art line. It's actually a bit old, so I'm not quite sure how. It's working fairly well. All right, so there's different cultures in amongst the Indigenous culture. We've got the more seafaring ones that built lived on seafood and shells, and built the shell, what are they called? They're like mounds where all the shells were built up. I can't remember, there's actually a name for them. So I'm just off the cuff of my head, I'm not reading anything, I'm just remembering from conversations. And the rainbow serpent is the part of the dreaming. This is my version, and I do not in any way, shape or form want to what's the word? Appropriate. That's the word I'm looking for. Just doing my version of how I see the beautiful Indigenous culture of Australia, and very spiritual people, very connected to the land, which is why I wanted to put Uluru there. And this reminded me a little bit of older paintings, the splatters with ochre and, you know, earthy colours made of the dyes, and the colours made of different earthy paints and things. I feel like I need to do a basket weave right now. That would be good, wouldn't it? I had the luck to the Dreaming Festival up at in Queensland. We have a festival called it's at Woodford, and there is a big folk festival at Christmas time, Boxing Day through to New Year's Eve and the day after, and they also had the Dreaming Festival for a while, which was one where tribes from all over Australia came and celebrated, and that was, I don't think they do that anymore, but that was beautiful. That was in autumn, so you'd stand around the fires talking to people and chatting, and while that was on, and different cultures from all over the world would come, which would be fabulous. While that was on, they had some traditional basket weavers from Arnhem Land. So Arnhem Land is up the top in the Northern Territory. There's a very big area which is you've got to be, basically you have to be invited to go there if you're not Indigenous. And there's quite a lot of land, and they have gatherings and stuff. And the girl's dad, my ex, the girl's dad, has been lucky to go up there and perform with Indigenous musicians, which is good for him. And anyway, back to the basket weaving, segueing yet again, getting off track as I do. I was able to work with the ladies, the women, and learn a bit of basket weaving. And I'll tell you what, they are skilled. That was really great fun to do. And what I learnt was how little patience I have. how grounded and amazing the women are, that they can just peacefully sit there and just do this for ages, do this weaving. But you know, there was a beautiful sense of community and pride in your work, and just being connected and enjoying that process of weaving and making a basket. It was really lovely. So I also, one of the things about this piece is that I do not want to overcomplicate it. I don't want to make it frilly. I just love the simplicity and the back to nature of the whole culture, and the dreaming being the stories that are the stories they pass on through oral history to the children, and you know, their story of creation. So what else? So we've got, that's the Northern Territory, which is, if anyone doesn't know, that's that big in the middle, that's like a little slice down through the middle of Australia. And let's still use red. I haven't been to Uluru. I'd like to, now that it's closed to the public walking on it, and it's being treated as a more sacred place. I might go and visit. It was a bit crass before. When I was teaching primary school, I was teaching, I had a class in a school that was very multicultural, because it was in near housing commission flats and stuff. And I had a couple of Indigenous children in the class, and then we had a guy come from up around Arnhem Land who actually didn't speak English, and that was quite an amazing experience to have him in the class. He hadn't really ever been in a classroom before. He had trouble because he didn't speak English so well, and unfortunately he went off to the language school, which we were a bit sad about, because he was such a lovely guy. He'd just be smiling and he'd be happy, and we had a bit of freedom because it wasn't a normal school. It was a school that had Steiner, and it had the Reggio play art-based, inquiry-based Italian methods of schooling. And my class was like a crossover between the Reggio and the normal primary school, and we did lots of things, and he really brought a lot of joy to us in that classroom. He was very funny, smiled a lot, laughed a lot with all our projects that we were doing. It was good. It's a little bit transparent anyway. So that is obviously only a tip of the iceberg about the Australian Indigenous culture. I didn't want to be political, I just wanted to be gentle and honouring, and honouring the sacredness of their stories and the earth and the creativity. And that was all I really actually felt like doing for this culture thing. There's so much more you could add to it, but let's just keep that nice and simple and remember that it's important. Yeah. All right, thanks. That's the end of day 38. Okay, bye.